welcome back to the show, everybody. And firstly, thank you for joining us again. Before we get into this video, please hit the subscribe, the bell, and the like button below. It does help this channel to grow. So I did mention that we would be covering the situation at Reading Football Club, my hometown football club, in quite a bit of detail, and hence the reason why we are doing this video. What is it actually like being part of Reading Football Club under the Dai Yongge regime? What about players who have recently joined the football club this season? Were they missold a dream? Well, we'll find out, because my special guest today is the partner of one of Reading Football Club's stars this season, Lewis Wing. And she has come out and spoken publicly with regards to the issues and the challenges at the football club to make a difference. She's very, very well respected within the Reading fan base, therefore, and it is a pleasure to welcome onto the show Yazmine Delarose. Welcome to the show, Yazmine. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, very, very well. And of course, some good news. We'll come on to that in a bit. But if no, for people that don't know you,
Mm.
um, of course, there is quite a situation at the moment going on at Reading Football Club.
Yeah.
And you did the fan base a massive favour by coming out and giving your views on that.
Mm.
Um, was you nervous, firstly, with regards to speaking out about the situations? We'll go into that in a bit more
Yeah.
detail, but was you nervous originally of coming out and saying what you did?
To be honest, nerves didn't really cross my mind. I would say that it was overwhelming because I didn't expect the response, right? So it wasn't like I was set out to put something out there and thinking that everyone was going to pick up on it and start retweeting it and messaging me and stuff like that. That was never the intent. It was more intent. It was more of actually, I was just saying how I was sitting on the sofa, and that's how I was generally feeling at that point in time. So I think nerves didn't really come into it because I think when you're speaking the truth and you're speaking, honestly, that's just how you feel. But I was definitely overwhelmed with just how quickly it just took off in a really good way, because I think that for me, I've always been told that Reading is a family club, the fan base is great. And I hadn't really experienced that because I think as a partner of a player, you are a little bit segregated, aren't you? I feel like, I go to the games and I go and sit in the lounge, and then I go out into the stands and I watch the game, and then I go back in. So you don't really get to interact, and probably like no one, even if they'd met me at any of the games, they wouldn't have necessarily known who I was anyway. They just might have thought, oh, she's a fan or whatever that looks like. So it was really, really empowering, and it was just so lovely to feel connected and supported by everyone, to be honest.
And you are the partner of Lewis Wing, who is one of the stars of the team this season. He's been absolutely fantastic so far for the Roars, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. It's been so nice to see as well, because we've been on a bit of a journey, right? So we have been on a bit of journey, and it's just been so nice because I've always known that, and I think that anyone that has worked with him, manager-wise, coach-wise, has known his ability and known what he's capable of doing, but he hasn't necessarily had that opportunity to shine, and he really has here, and it's just so lovely to see.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I'll tell you what, let's take it back a little bit, because I know that you do quite a lot of social media stuff yourself. You're on YouTube as well, and you do quite a bit for Watford as well, don't you?
Yeah, so how that kind of all came into light is a bit of a backstory. So I went to a school in Radlett called Aldenham. Fun fact, it was actually a traditional boys' school. I was one of the first girls to make it co-ed. So started my early education there. And then when I left, I didn't want to do sixth form. I decided that I wanted to go into go back to drama school. So I went to a drama school called Italia Conti, which is quite well known. Managed to get on an acting course there, and that's kind of where I guess my passion for that industry really started, and that's where I kind of had my foundations. So came out of there with a 2-year acting diploma, and really wanted to come out there doing acting at that point in time. Kind of like I wanted to go down the kind of Hollyoaks, EastEnders vibe. And actually, when I was in the industry and I guess auditioning and stuff, I really loved, like, Cat Deeley was massive then, and I was like, and Holly Willoughby, and I was like, do you know what? I really, really would love to do something like that. And I've always thought I'm pretty good with people and be able to like present and stuff like that. And that's where that kind of presenting side came out, because I hadn't trained in it, but I knew that I had transferable skills to be able to kind of go down that route. And I ended up doing a presenting course. And it was at that point in time, I kind of wanted to do, for me, it was a kind of like maybe Holly Willoughby, Cat Deeley sort of thing, because football wasn't really, I hadn't got into football at that point in time. So that's the avenue that I wanted to do. So got a show reel, and although YouTube is quite outdated, I don't really use it at the moment, but hopefully that might be, you know, I might come back to it pretty soon. But that's kind of where my passion for presenting happened. Cut a long story short, a few years later, I kind of had a bit of a break, because, you know, the industry is hard to get into, and you have to decide, do you want to earn money, be able to do nice things and live life, or do you want to be kind of, you know, a prisoner of just auditioning, not being able to do anything? And I kind of went down the career path and thought I will come back to it once I've got myself settled. And in regards to what you said about Watford, that's most recent, I'd say last year. And how that actually came about is Emma Saunders, who now presents for like Sky and she does a lot of the pundit stuff. She was working at Watford doing the stadium announcing. And I ended up having a few mutual friends and become sort of friendly with her. And I was like, she said to me, oh, I'm leaving. I was like, who have they hired? And they were like, no one yet. I think they're just waiting to see, because this was after COVID. So I think obviously budgets had been cut at that point. So they were kind of just trying to strip back, because they had 2 stadium announcers at that point in time. But she gave me the details, and I'd been in sales previously. So one day I was just feeling really confident. I picked up the phone to the comms director and just pitched myself in. I was like, I know Emma Saunders. I said, my name's Yazmine. I do some presenting. Would really love to be a part of it. But it's not a main job. It's a freelance job. And what happens is that I kind of a bit of a standby. So if the gentleman Tim is unable to do it, I will obviously go in. But it is a little bit different. Stadium announcing is not presenting. I kind of had to strip back all the presenting side of things. I have quite a bit more of a monotone, clear voice. But that's one part of it. So that was the Watford side. But you've probably seen the Peterborough United stuff. And that's kind of really where I'd say my main presenting, like within the football industry, has come from. And that's because I was actually friends with Aaron McLean. They call him Aaron now, but and he was at Peterborough managing, like doing the coaching side of things at that point in time. And an opportunity came up, and he knew that I was trying to get into that industry. And he was like, "Look, something's come up." He was like, would you be up for doing that? I was like, 100%, get me involved. And that was really great, because Peterborough is a really, really lovely club. A lot of the staff have been there for many years. You know, press office has been there for like 30 years. Like, it's crazy. And you just feel like really at home. They made me feel really comfortable. And that's kind of where the passion for the football side of, I guess, really emerged. But previously, prior COVID, I actually ended up really knocking down a few doors, and especially at Man City. And I was like, look, will you just let me come down and do a bit of, sort of shadowing, sort of let me come down to see how it all works. It would be really great. I'm trying to, build my portfolio, do it for free. And I ended up, they were like, yeah, we can do it. How about this date? And then unfortunately, that date got cancelled because something came up. And then obviously a few weeks later, COVID started to emerge. And unfortunately, that obviously ruined the chances. But that's kind of the summary of what I've been doing. But I'd love to get back into it. It's just obviously life gets busy. You know what it's like. Life gets busy. I then had a little boy, and it's just, you get caught up. But that is definitely where my passion is. And it doesn't have to necessarily be football, but obviously I'm in two worlds, right? So if I can combine the two of them, it makes sense.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. I've got to ask, how did you meet Lewis?
Okay, so I met Lewis. I actually met him in Manchester. So neither where I live, neither where he lived at the time either. And it was on a night out, literally. A friend of mine, two of my friends were living in Manchester at the time. I was going down there quite a bit and staying with them, and just, you know, Manchester was really fun at this point in time. I was like at the peak of my, you know, youthfulness, I would say. So we were just enjoying going out, and what had happened is I was on a night out. And I think I have mentioned this, but I bumped into George Saville, who used to play with Lewis at Middlesbrough. And I'd known him when I was like 17, 18 for a few years. And obviously you grow up and everyone goes and lives elsewhere. And I hadn't seen him for probably about 6 years. And he was there, and I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I haven't seen you. How are you? And obviously social media, I knew that he'd got married, knew that he'd just had a little girl. And I was like talking to him about it. And I was like, he was like, what about you? You must have found someone. I was like, no, I'm still lonely, still on my own. I was like, I was like, there's just no one that's just a genuinely nice guy. I was like, I'm really struggling. And he was like, oh, stop being silly. I was like, don't you have any friends for me? And I was like, but they've got to be really nice and normal, really just genuinely nice, because I'm fed up of all these people just like take me for granted. And he was like, he kind of sat there, and I remember him looking at me being like, hold on a minute. He turned away and went and grabbed Lewis and brought him back. And actually, funny enough, because of you probably don't know this, but one of Lewis's good friends is Tavernier. Right. Yeah. So obviously they were at Middlesbrough together. So it was them two. They were like Tweedledee and Tweedledum. And I remember looking at them and Lewis just coming towards me, and he introduced us. And that's kind of where it all began.
Brilliant. It's a brilliant story. And of course, Marcus Tavernier in there as well.
I know, exactly. And yeah, so that's, it's just funny. So football's so small. Like you probably know this, but you know, like I obviously knew George, and Lewis was really close with Marcus, and it's just everyone knows everyone. You know, everyone moves clubs, and you that social circle, it's really entwined, really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. You seem to find that a lot of the players know each other, and it's great that there's a little bit of a Bournemouth connection in there as well.
Yeah.
Of course, Lewis did go from Middlesbrough to Wickam Wanderers, and leading on to the Reading part in a moment. But of course, how was that move to Wickham for you? How did you find Wickham?
I mean, don't forget, we also had Rotherham and Sheffield Wednesday in there as well, right?
Yes, so, yeah.
There's been a lot of logistics, I would say. Yes. It was, do you know what? Look, I would say that it's very different, because when we was at Middlesbrough, it was COVID, peak COVID. It was very, very different. I think I only went to 2 games before COVID hit. So I actually only went to the stadium twice. So it would have been a completely different outlook and view had it been normal times. So, you know, at this point in time, Lewis was, you know, at Middlesbrough, was going to training and having to sit in the car park, get tested, and was very much, you know, it was that kind of vibe. Whereas when we went to Wickham, everything had opened up again. It was very, very family orientated. Majority of the players had wives and children, and young children that were very similar to the age of my little boy. So it was at that point in time, it was like, wow, like this is what a club community is supposed to be like, you know what I mean? Because that was the first place that I'd really experienced that. And obviously, you know, Middlesbrough and Wickham, it was very different. They're different clubs, you know, in regards to training facilities, you know, campuses, stadiums, and all the rest of it. It is different. But for me, I was really happy because I'm originally from London. So for me, I was like, I'm coming back home rather than being sort of up far in the north, it was great. But obviously, you know, I'm very close to my mum and my sisters, and for me, especially with having quite a young child, you do miss your friends, and you do miss, you know, your mum and the rest of it. So I was excited to kind of be edging back slightly.
We'll come on to, of course, Wickham in a
Mm,
bit because, of course, the training ground situation as well. We'll touch on
mm,
that. But
yeah,
um, you was quite happy at Wickham, and Lewis really enjoyed his time there from what it
mm,
looked like.
mm,
But of course, signed for Reading during the
yeah,
summer. Um, when Lewis did sign for Reading, did you think that because, of course, state of the art training ground, Premier League stadium,
yeah.
effectively, did you
Mm,
think that this is a club that can go places
mm.
at that point in time?
Absolutely. I think that was, one of the deciding factors, right?
Mhm.
I think that, there's a lot of reasons, obviously Reading's not too far from where we live. So it was
Yeah,
like not having to uproot us because, I was working full time at that point in time, right? So not only would I have had to try and find find accommodation, I would have to find a new nursery. There was a lot of logistics behind getting the house moved and all the rest of it, which obviously they're not massive big deals. They're things that can be done. But when you are working a full-time job and have a child and you're trying to be a partner, they're added stresses. So I'd say I guess location wise, I was like, well, look, half an hour commute, amazing. But also your shop window, right? So the shop window was you go to the training facilities and you're just blown away by these grounds. You're like, wow, this is what you've been looking for. Like also like Middlesbrough, it was that kind of feel of that kind of that league that you're walking into. Wow, this is fantastic. And look, Lewis he's testing me. 28, yeah, 28, I think. I'm like, and it's as a family, we need to start thinking about his rehab. Okay, right, you're going to be doing 2 games a week. You want to have facilities that you can really look after your body. Now you need to make sure that you're fueling it with the best that you could possibly do, and that facilities had that, right? You had the hydro pool, you had everything in order to make sure that you were match fit for those once or twice games a week. So that was one of the deciding factors as well. And also when you go to the stadium, you're like, wow, this has the foundations for this club to be great. With the players, the great players, great staff, great people around. This club can really push forward in that right direction. And yeah, I think that was the intent of when we signed. They've got the foundations, they've got everything, they've got the players now. Obviously, at that point in time, I think we weren't too sure who was going to sign, but we had a sort of an inkling. This is moving in the right directions. This is what you want to be. This is what we want to be a part of. And I think that was the kind of the mindset that we were in at that point in time, for sure.
Do you feel that the move was effectively, and I hate to use this word, was it missold at the time?
Mm.
Because was all the financial issues
Yeah,
kind of kept away from yourself? Of course, Reading had recently been relegated into League
mm,
One. If it wasn't for Dai Yongge, who we'll come on to in a bit,
yeah,
because he's a big part of this, um,
yeah.
if it wasn't for Dai Yongge,
Mm.
Reading would still be in the Championship. But was that all hidden away from you when yourself and Lewis walked around and looked at the club?
Yeah, I mean, look, definitely. I think that, if someone said to us there's possibilities that there's going to be points deducted and there's possibilities that tax bills won't be paid, would it have been a fact of we would have to think about it? Yeah, of course, naturally. I think that I made sure, because I kind of was quite involved in the move, because I kind of the middle person communicating between agent and Lewis and all the rest of it. But I was making sure, and also Lewis's mum and dad, we were like, right, we need to make sure that we need to ask the questions. Are there going to be points deducted? Are there any financial difficulties that you are in at the moment? Of course, they were told. We were told outright that no points were going to be deducted, and there wasn't any financial difficulties, and that was in the past, and there's going to be new buyers, and we're going to be onwards and upwards, because obviously we already knew the situation that Reading had been in, but we were very much sold on the fact that that was the past and this is the future, and this is the present and the future. And this is why we want to get these players in, because we're really going to go for that promotion race. And of course, like, what player doesn't want to be a part of that promotion? Like, Lewis hasn't been a part of a sort of a promotion. So for him, he would love to be a part of that throughout his career. You know, these are questions that, of course, you know, if you're being, you know, I guess, making sure that you have business intelligence and you're asking the right questions, these are questions that were asked, definitely.
So, first day of training at Lewis's new club, and I guess this is really a big thought of mine, is that Lewis is one of the more established, or established professionals at the football club, because it's such a young team.
Yeah.
It's such a young team. Do you know how he found that, or how do you think that Lewis, adapted to? Did he have to take a few of the players under his wing, so to speak? Play on the words there. But yeah, did he need to look after a couple of the players, because it is a very, very young team?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that look, it goes without saying, you know, the proofs on the tin as such. You know, there is a bit more of a divide. You've got very senior players with very, very junior players. But it was, I think a lot of the boys there, to be quite honest, are very much, you know, they're in that role that they would take people under their wing and guide them and stuff. I do think it is different now. I would say that when Lewis was coming up through the ranks, you know what it's like. It's what do they call it? Like, you know, when it's kind of like there's football rules sort of thing. You know, you can't come to the first team dressing room unless you've got earned your stripes and stuff like that. You know, so I think that there's this new generation don't really know sometimes they haven't earned their stripes in order to be in that first team sort of environment. But I do think that is a generational thing with very young emerging players now. If you're kind of thinking about to when Lewis was growing up and maybe at Middlesbrough, you know, and had much more senior players. So I do think it's different, and times have, I guess, you know, it's very much, I think times have moved forward. So that's not necessarily how football used to be. It's very different to how it is now. But going back to your question, I do think that Lewis hadn't really had to take on that leadership role before. You know, it was something new, but actually it was quite nice, because, you know, he was learning something new on the way, on his journey. And I know that he really does enjoy that. You know, if someone is struggling or doesn't know what to do, you know, Lewis is that person to put his arm around them and say, do you know what, look, I've been there. I know how it feels. You know, this is a bit of words of wisdom. You can do it, sort of thing. So I think that they had to definitely adapt, because it wasn't the norm. I think a lot of players hadn't been in that situation where it was very split, very much like young players and senior players. Yeah. So they really had to adapt to make sure there was no sort of like segregation. But I think that they've done that in a really, really beautiful way now. You know, maybe it might have been a bit of trial and error at the beginning, getting to know everyone and you know, finding each other's strengths and, you know, all the rest of it. But actually now it seems to have really, really gelled. And, you know, like I said, Lewis has taken on more of a leadership role, which he hadn't done before, which he's really enjoying at this moment in time as well.
Excellent stuff. Well, let's bring in Dai Yongge, who of course is a bit of the villain of the piece at Reading. So he bought the club in 2017. Reading were a penalty kick away from the Premier League, and has kind of driven the club into this ruin. Have you ever met Dai Yongge as a person, or spoken to him?
Yeah, no, never met him, never been, not even in the same vicinity as him, to be honest, unless he was at one of the games, which I highly doubt it. But, you know, sort of other than that, I think that he's just kept himself to himself, you know. I don't think I'm not even sure if Lewis has ever met him either. I don't think ever. So, I mean, does that speak volumes of someone who's invested in the club or committed to a club? I don't know. You tell me.
But it must be frustrating, both for yourself and for Lewis, to have all these points deducted because of somebody who is vacant,
mm,
who has been completely vacant from the football club. When the first points deduction, went come on board, uh,
mm,
of course, the side were very new. They were getting to know each other at the time. They hadn't hit their flow, which they have now,
mm.
and are doing really, really well. But was a lot of the players, do you feel disheartened? Were you disheartened? Did you think, "Crikey, have we made a mistake here?"
Yeah, of course. I think naturally, because it's not something that, look, I understand that
Mhm.
not every club, when you join a club, it's not going to be plain sailing.
Yeah.
That is football. Sometimes, you might be at the top of the league, and get promoted one year. Next year, you might be struggling. Like, these are all, bumps in the road, and it's all a part of the football journey. But having said that, I would say that when obviously those first points got deducted, it was the unknown, because it's starting to think, right, things are starting to unravel a little bit now.
Yeah.
What does this mean? Is this a one-off? Because at this point we didn't know, is this a one-off?
Mhm.
Or is it recreating history of what had happened before, right? So it was like, regardless of what we were kind of said, this is it's a brand new season, the past is the past, there's new owners and stuff like that. You then think, oh gosh, is this really going to be happening moving forward? So definitely, I think that I was personally freaking out, thinking, this is not what we signed up for. This is not what we expected. But, I guess at that point in time, it was the unknown that was also scary, I think, because we didn't know the situation that the club was in at that point in time, right? So it was like it was like we were just sitting there waiting for what the next thing was going to be, because we wasn't
Mhm.
sure.
And of course, there was then, I think it was about November time, casting
Mm,
mind. It's been crazy, hasn't it? Let's be honest, Yasmin. It has been
yeah,
crazy, everything that's been going on at the
yeah.
football club.
You couldn't make
The
it up, could you? If someone said, "Oh, let's write something. Let's put it down. What do you think could possibly happen?"
Mm.
I guarantee no one would have put this.
And especially a club that is well established,
Mm,
a club like Reading, which were well established in the Championship,
mm,
have been relegated because of a dodgy owner.
mm.
And I think it's fair to call him that.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, a side that had been ran so well,
Mm,
going into all this mess,
mm,
it was a complete shock as a fan
mm,
and the whole of the fan base to experience this. But from a player's wife's perspective,
mm,
how did you find it when, for example, sponsors were having to pay wages and
mm.
the power was going off? The meals, of
Yeah.
course, in the training ground weren't being
Yeah.
prepared. Um,
It's crazy. Like that for me, like, you know, having been with Lewis throughout this journey from Middlesbrough days,
mm,
I know the importance of, like, that just really infuriates me with the whole food situation, because, for me, like, I know how important food is to fuel your body, and especially for athletes to be able to recover the next day and have the nutrients and what they need. And, for the actual chefs to be taken away, to then have like prep meal boxes, that, and look, I understand if the money's not there, the money's not there. But that for me is like one of the necessities. It's so important for an athlete to get their diet right, and that really, really angered me when I found that out. Because also you pay for it. Like, players do pay towards it every month. So what, for me, I was like, well, what are you paying for? Like, you're not having what you need to be able to make sure that you're going to be fueling your body for training or for games or whatever that is. Although, the famous spag bowl is definitely out there for Lewis, which three matches. But that for me, that's one of the points I was just like really, really, really infuriated by.
and it's crazy because the thing
Mm,
is that this man, Dai Yongge, has
mm,
meant to have money. Although I know that you did watch my
yeah,
interview with Dr. Mike Gow,
yeah,
and a really, really interesting chat I had
mm,
with him, that it all kind of unraveled, that he was in
mm,
so much trouble. Um, you know, the question is really here is, do you feel that he has got the money? Do you feel that, there
So
has been intentions beforehand to sell the club?
look, I don't know. I'm not knowledgeable enough. I haven't sat
Mm,
down and gone in depth, other than listening to yourself and obviously, the what's been going on. I'm not knowledgeable enough to obviously give a fair overview. But what I would probably say is that I think the money's there.
yeah,
I don't know whether or not he can get the money out because of the whole China and stuff like that, which I think that obviously on that podcast he did explain. So I think there is difficulties about him getting that out, but
yeah,
there's no excuse because he still owns a company. It's still a business. He
yeah,
still has employees. He still has players and everyone else in a community. He has to abide by it. He has to pay wages. He has to pay tax. I don't know. Look, if I miss a tax bill, if I owe the HMRC money, they hunt me down. I get how many brown letters through the post box, right? And and obviously I feel like, why should he be any different? He decided to buy a club in the UK, and he needs to abide by the UK regulations. And if that's not the case, you need to sell the club. If you don't have the money, you need to sell the club. And also, if you need to make a loss on it, you need to make a loss on it because you've done wrong. So you need to swallow that sort of thing. And that's the mentality that I have. Also, I know that his sister and also his son are ranked, like, his son's like 726 or something riches in mainland China. We're not
yeah.
just talking about, we're talking about how big China is, right? And I'm pretty sure that he knows enough people that if he needed to borrow some money, or if he needed to just be able to pay a tax bill in order to invest in the future of a company that he's bought, then he would have very powerful friends and able to do that for him, right? So is it a can't do, or is it a won't do? And that's what I really that's what my I guess overview is, really.
To be honest, I've got a view on that as well
Mm,
myself, is that, if he knows that he has to pay wages,
yeah,
I think it was November,
yeah,
you know, and he's worried about getting that money out of China. Why did he not do that in September?
yeah,
Like the EFL had said, put
yeah,
the money in that holding account to then pay the players.
yeah,
And, it just seems that he is doing
yeah.
things by the day,
Mm,
and let's be fair, with the recent situation,
mm,
and I want to get your opinion on this as well, because of course the training ground situation,
mm,
um, it just strikes as A, asset stripping,
yes.
B, somebody who is not going to put another penny into the club.
Mm,
Um, but thirdly, somebody who hasn't really done any due diligence, because I was one of the people as well that had a little look through.
yeah.
To be honest, how boring am I on a Thursday evening? I think it was a Thursday evening, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Because the protest outside Wickam Wanderers, Adams
Yeah.
Park, was on the Friday, and I was looking through and I thought, oh, and found this bit on Woking Borough Council's website with
Yeah.
regards to the training ground, that only Reading could use it.
Yeah.
How could somebody get it so wrong?
Yeah. I know. Well, this is the thing. But then, like, people like yourself, right? If it wasn't for people like yourself and for the fan base and the community that have gone out of their way to be able to research this, to find this information, it just shows to me, like, look, if you own a company and you're invested and you're committed into that company, you know everything that's going on, right? You know who works for you, more or less, right? And I think that, look, don't get me wrong, when it is bigger companies, of course you do have, your very much your pyramid, your hierarchy and all the rest of it, and you have staff to be able to delegate and stuff like that. But it just, for me, I think that, you know, I think that he just knows that he made so many bad decisions. He lost a lot of money. He put a lot of money in. They weren't great business decisions. And I think that sometimes in business, you need to know, take accountability, and understand that you're not going to be recouping that money because made bad choices and bad decisions, right? And I think that also with the whole situation, when you're saying about the wages, You know, surely you would have like a finance manager or something along those lines that would be like, right, we need to put a bit of a 6-month plan in place because we are in trouble. Let's go through a bit of an agenda of what we need to do each month, you know, and schedule and stuff like that. But I mean, it's not like you're not working with, you know, a 10, 20 employee company.
Yeah.
We're talking about thousands of people, not just, you know, community, fan, employees, players. You know, these are thousands of people that work for this company, right? And not necessarily just work, but also, you know, put money into it, and, you know, it's their life and their passion and all the rest of it. So you would think that you would have that in order, but it just sounds like he just hasn't, and he's not bothered about it. And like you said, he's just living from one day to the next. It's like, you know, the saying of what, borrow money from Paul to pay Peter, and that's what I think that he's really just doing. And that's not the type of person that deserves to own a football club like Reading.
Yeah.
And B, you know, he just doesn't deserve to be associated in any way, shape, or form. And you know, he just needs to move on, basically.
Yeah, exit stage left, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's also discuss one of my favourite people at the football club. You can tell I'm being sarcastic there.
Yeah.
He's, well, right-hand man,
Mm,
Dai Yong Pang,
mm,
and some of the things that he has come out with
mm,
is nothing short of scandalous. When running a football club,
mm.
like Reading Football Club, that has been ran so well by Sir John Medeski
Yeah.
beforehand, you know, for him to come out and say that the fans are doing nothing good, too emotional, all this sort of
Mm.
stuff. How much dealings have you had with him?
None whatsoever, literally. So, you know, I couldn't even tell you what he looks like. That's how much, you know, that I've not had any communication. And I don't think also, you know, any of the players do. Like I said, I think that both of them are kept very, very much away, which I think that they like. I don't think they've tried any other way to be present or involved or anything like that. But you know, I'd say that other than statements that have been made, there's been no dealings. And to be quite frank, I wouldn't want there to be anyway, right? Unless but yeah, there's none whatsoever. So, you know, it's exactly, I would say the stance on that is like however yourself and the fans and the communication is exactly the same for families and players and stuff like that as well.
And Pang is, well, to be honest, he's rolled up the whole of the fan base.
Yeah,
Because firstly, a club is based on emotions. You
yeah, of
know,
course.
when the
People go
club
there
is
passionate. It's
exactly,
yeah.
but you know, he's turning around and he's saying that, you know, the fans are too emotional, they've done nothing
I
good.
think that's a culture thing though as well. You know, very very two different cultures.
Mm,
And I think that's clear as well, because, you know, I think business in China is very different to business in the UK. It's the same with anything. Business in the Netherlands is very different to the UK and in Germany and all the rest of it. You know, I think that is a cultural thing. And I think that when you are investing in companies in those countries, you need to understand what that's like.
yeah, completely agree. Completely agree.
Mm,
And you know, Pang has done himself no favors, and I think he was the one that was orchestrating, you know, the training ground
mm,
move and
mm.
trying to sell that to Wickham Wanderers.
Yeah.
As somebody who knows Wickham Wanderers and has been at that football club, you know, of course there is quite a bit of resentment between Reading
Mm,
and Wickham now.
yeah.
Um, how much do you hope that that can be fixed? Because I guess that Lewis has still got a bit of a love in him for Wickham, and you know, hopes they do well. I guess with all sides that he plays for.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it will. I think when the dust settles, definitely. I think it's necessary. I think it's more of the people higher up that the issue has come from, right? Rather
Yeah,
than the fans and stuff. And, you know, like, I do think that once hopefully, touch wood, we're out of this dark tunnel, I
Yeah.
do think that dust will settle. And I think that will be in the past. I think that, like you said, football is an emotional roller coaster. Whether you're fans or players or families of players, whatever that looks like. And I think that it's in that moment in time when things happen. But I think that it would be a bit more of a distant memory once we're over the hardship.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's talk about the positives, of
Yeah.
course, this week. And I'll tell you what, actually, before we go on to that, let's talk about the team's performances because
Mm.
they have been really, really good, considering there's no meals,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the
Yeah.
training ground
I
situation,
think
there's
I even think, like, at the hydro pool and stuff. I mean,
mm,
don't quote me, but I don't actually think that they're allowed to use it at the moment either. I think some of the facilities are actually just closed because I think maybe I don't know how much they are to run and all the rest of it. But like I think that I think the hydro pool or something, or I might just be making that up and it might just be temporarily closed. I'm not sure, but I know that a lot of things have been stripped because obviously how much they are to run and stuff like that, and obviously the food preps and stuff like that. But yes, having listened to what you just said in regards to how well they've done, considering they've had to make do with a lot of things that they aren't usually used to as well, right?
yes, yeah, and the team at the moment,
Mm.
are a lot of fans, are saying they're right up there with some of the best teams that Reading have seen.
Yeah,
Okay, we've seen Reading in the Premier League, and the team
yeah.
that got to eighth. However, this team has got such a unity, such a bond,
Mm.
and Lewis is a massive part of that,
Mm.
considering that he is one of the more senior established members of the squad.
Mm.
He's a massive part of that. And full credit to the players for carrying on through considering all the mess. But of
Yeah.
course, this week it was announced that exclusivity has been signed. For yourself, how much of that is a weight off your shoulders and thinking this could be coming to an end now?
Yeah, definitely. I was like, it's the news that you hope to hear.
Yeah,
I think, I voiced it on Twitter. I was like, this is what you want to wake up to hearing, and
yeah.
especially that it's in a, because when I heard it, Lewis told me, I was like, is that official, or is it just like, is it just Chinese whispers sort of thing? And he was like, no, like Redding's actually put it out as a statement. I was like, let me see. And then obviously started to look myself, and I couldn't believe it because obviously we'd had international breaks. So look, things are very, we took our time. It was very quiet. I wasn't really on social media, or I was just taking a bit of time to be with the family and just kind of like reset. And then obviously this came out, and in my head, I was like, imagine if we could, or actually, I think I tweeted out, it's like, imagine if we can come into international break with some positive, great news that we can look forward to. And I was like, I feel like I'm manifesting this. And then obviously the news dropped, but obviously I am super excited, but I am also really, I'd say definitely cautious, cautious but optimistic, right? Because at the end of the day, business is business, and like everyone's been saying, no deal is done until it's done and it's signed on the dotted line. And I think there's definitely going to be a few roller coaster moments during this process. But like I said, it's something that I'm really excited about. But there is a part of me that is just slightly holding back because you just never know.
I guess all the fan base at first were like, "Yes, this is," but I guess
Yeah,
and I completely do agree with you.
yeah,
It's a case of it's not done until it's done,
yeah.
and Guy has finally left the club. But
And you
it
don't
was,
want to get too excited as well, right? Like, I really want to get excited, but
Mhm.
also I need to keep level-headed because, is this a step in the right direction? Absolutely. I'm thrilled that this nightmare may be over and we can look, like you said, for the positives, because actually this team and the club and the, you know, like Ruben and the employees are so great that they could do such great things, but also I feel like it would be even worse if you got excited and then, you know, you just got crushed last minute, right? So I think that you have to just remain level-headed, hope for the best, and hope that everyone that's involved in this is doing their part and doing the best for the club and for the people as well.
It does strike to me that you are very, very happy at Reading, despite
Yeah.
everything that has gone on. And of
Yeah.
course, you've really, you know, been accepted in by the fan base. The fan base absolutely love you. I saw that,
It's
you know,
crazy, isn't it? Like, I think Lewis was saying, there's more tweets about you than there is about me. I was really giggling. I just, you know, I think what's so beautiful about it is that, like, you know, not like people don't get to know the players' partners really, you know what I mean? Unless they're involved in, I guess, fundraisers and stuff like that, you know, we're always kind of kept to the side a little bit. But it's just so refreshing to actually just be around people amongst it, know that we're all in the same boat. Because, you know, I think that people do sometimes have a preconceived idea of what you know, a player's partner may be like, and it's just, I think hopefully it's been a bit refreshing for the fans and people as well to hear my side and also get to know me. And I guess we're just a normal family, right? We're just a normal family, you know. Obviously Lewis's job is football, but, you know, other than that, we're just like everyone else, going through the same emotions, roller coaster and all the rest of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I can understand exactly how difficult it's been, but luckily there's light at the end of the tunnel. But
Yes.
you know, looking forward to next season, if
Mm.
this all goes ahead, you know, then fingers crossed
Mm.
Lewis will get his wish of being in the promotion side.
I mean, that would be great. That would be a fantastic journey for Lewis and, you know, for his career. And I do hope that would come true, because I definitely can see the potential there 100%. And, you know, I think in regards to, like, you know, Reading as a club, it's so great. Like, you know, I've got to meet some people that, like, a lot of the staff, a lot of the employees, not just, I mean, staff that work there on, like, sort of match days, but also, you know, that actually work in the office, and they're such lovely people. Like, everyone just has a passion for Reading, a passion for working there, a passion for wanting to do the best that they can possibly do in whatever form that is for the club as well, which is just so nice.
And it would be nice for them not
Mm.
to be messed around by the owner any
Yeah,
longer, and
yeah.
for this nightmare to be over, because it is such a good club. It's
Mm.
such a good club. It's a well-established club that's just sadly been ran very, very, very badly. You know, in the past couple of years, you know, let's be fair, the damage that Dai Yongge has done,
Mm.
you know, since 2017, when
Yeah,
being a penalty kick away from the Premier League,
yeah.
is unbelievable, really.
Yeah, and that's what I think, that's where it really stemmed from, right? I think that he thought that he was buying a club that is going to go in the Premier League, and I think that, you know, people, the multi-billionaires and multi-millionaires, you know, they're very much, you know, if it's a trend to own a football club, that's what everyone must do that have money. If it's a trend to, you know, invest in clubs in Saudi, they're going to do that. You know what I mean? So I do think that at that point in time, I think a lot of Chinese multimillionaires and billionaires wanted to own Premier League football clubs, and that's what he thought that he was getting. And I think when it all obviously unravelled, and the fact that obviously that didn't happen, I think that that's where it really stemmed from. And then that, with bad business decisions, bad people around him maybe influence him to do the things that are not, you know, the best thing to do at that moment in time. It's just all been it's all accounted for, and this is where we've ended up, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Well, you did get a T-shirt as well. I did see that
I
actually
do.
on X, or Twitter as we call it,
Yeah,
from Sell Before We Die, who have been absolutely fantastic through their campaign, haven't
yeah,
they?
they really have. I mean, just like, it's crazy that like these people that are that are here, really pushing for change and all the rest of it, for sell before you die. I think that they've all got full-time jobs. They're doing this outside of, their normal day-to-day jobs. The passion, the time that they're obviously giving towards this. I don't know personally what other fan base would do that, like, generally. You know what I mean? And I just think that speaks volumes of the type of people that we have at Reading. And that's the type of people that you want to be around, right? Whether you're a partner, a player, a manager, and hopefully, Sellers is, I'm sure that he does know that anyway, that, how much these guys have backed him, and obviously where they are, because it must have been, it must have been really hard for, I always think about this, and I always think about, it takes a type of person to go through the grit that Sellers has gone through, and to keep pushing forwards, and to keep committed to Reading, giving it 120%, because I know a lot of people, okay, maybe taking out a football context, but in actual professional services that may have been in a similar situation, they would have given up at this point in time. So I do have to say, hats off to Sellers, because he's really driven the ship through this storm. And, I think that passion and commitment has really shone through as well.
Yeah, and the players seem to love him, and he looks after the players. And like you say, he's been through, what very few managers really expect to ever go through.
Maybe, throughout their whole career, some managers haven't even been through that that volume of upset, and he's been through it all, and he keeps bouncing back. So, I think that credit is due where credit's due,
Yeah, most definitely. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, Reading will get the win on Friday. How is Lewis doing?
Yeah, good. Getting prepared for Friday. I keep getting confused because obviously, it's always Saturdays, and I'm like, oh yeah, we've got the game on Friday. And I've got my in-laws coming down, so we're going to be there, very much supporting him. And I think that he's feeling ready. So I'm just hoping that we can have another glorious win like last game. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, most definitely. You making everybody a spaghetti bolognese and Lewis.
I think I might need to get one of those mobile stalls outside and just be like serving it out to everyone. I think that might be the new thing.
I think you'd make an absolute killing. You gotta do it. You gotta do it.
maybe if there's maybe if we get through this dark tunnel and find the light, maybe we'll have to put that into real life for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And there's probably got to be a lot of champagne as well, I'm
God,
sure the fans will bring the champagne.
I'm trying to manifest the celebrations if we make it through the other side. That's what I'm putting it out there. Because funny enough, I know this is a bit off topic, but back when I'd met Lewis, when I was at Middlesbrough, I obviously was so far up north, right? And obviously COVID, you weren't allowed to do anything. I didn't have any friends around there. I was like I was like very much on my own. I was like trying to potter around. But I remember thinking, if only, because at this point in time, my views about Reading, I used to know Sean Morrison and have mutual friends. We were good friends, and what a great guy. And I remember at that point in time when he was there, things were really great for Reading, and he really loved it and all the rest of it. I used to sit there and be like, if only we could go to a club like Reading, that would be amazing. I'd be near home, I'd be near my friends. It's a great club. And then obviously, fast forward, where we got obviously signed for Reading, and I actually sometimes think, did I just manifest that and put that energy out there for it to happen?
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, the side go from strength to strength. Like I say, great club. It's a club that, although I moved down to Bournemouth all those years ago, it's a club that I still, whenever I'm up in Reading, I always go there with my dad and my brothers as well. And it's a family club. It's still a family club. The fans are so together, even despite everything that it's gone through. It deserves a bit of success again.
100%. And I just think, look, I think I've mentioned this before. Sometimes you need to go through hardship to really find find yourselves. And I know that this has definitely been a character building session for a lot of players, right? And although there's a lot of negatives, there's a lot of positives to bring from this. And I do think that as well with the fans as well, you know, how together they are, how and that's taken to go through this in order to get to where they are. So I do think that hopefully, you know, if things go well and it goes in the direction that we want it to, I do think that this is going to be a really, really special place to be a part of. And having gone through what we've gone through and actually survived and got through to the other side, I think that, you know, it will just be a really, really magical place for everyone, for sure.
Definitely. And finally, what is on the horizon for Yazmine Delarose?
Well, who knows? Maybe you can help me out. Maybe we can, if you know anyone that wants to do any podcasts and or presenting, you know, send them my CV, and you never know. No, seriously, I think I've just taken a little bit of time out from full-time employment just to really concentrate on Lewis, the situation that's going on, and just because obviously, you know, summer is coming up, and I do want to spend it with my family, but I am reassessing where that journey might take me. And you know, in all honesty, I would love for it to be, you know, down that presenting route, but you know, I love being around people. I love building relationships, especially, you know, since this whole situation has happened. You never know, if we stay up and we've got a new owner, maybe I can go to Reading and ask to be a part of, you know, maybe the charity or fundraising team or something along those lines. I'm not too sure.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And you're always welcome on here, Yazmine. If you do want to come and present, you know, feel free, come join us.
Maybe what we might have to do is we might have to also, maybe I might have to pitch to do Reading TV, and we might have to do like kind of, you know, very much how like Spurs do it now,
Yeah.
where you get to know the players. You know, we do those little social media snippets. Maybe that might be the way forwards.
Do you know what? I think all the fans as well would be right behind that.
I know.
Who's doing the Reading TV?
Maybe they can help me pitch it to Reading. You never know.
I don't think you need to pitch it. I think they've already made their minds up.
Yeah.
Well, Yazmine, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank
And,
you.
you know, hopefully, fingers crossed on Friday,
Yes.
3 points.
Yeah.
And do pass on my best wishes as well to Lewis. And I'm sure the side will go from strength to strength. And hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yes,
new
fingers
owner.
crossed. Thank you very much. Let's put it out there and hope for 3 points, new owners, and a brand new fantastic season.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Yazmine. And no doubt we'll
Yeah.
have a chat very soon.
Definitely. Take care.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us on this show. Please hit the like, the subscribe, the bell button below. Like I say, it does help this channel to grow. Do also check out our other shows as well with regards to this subject. So we have had Dr. Mike Gow on the show, who has gone into quite a lot of detail with regards to Dai Yongge and his finances, and also the issues with regards to the situation at Reading Football Club, and the nightmare scenarios as well. Luckily and hopefully, Reading are moving away from that. Also, do check out the other videos with Nick Holton from Sell Before We Die, and also Andy Preston from Reading Today. Like I say, it is in a playlist called the Reading Football Club Crisis, so please do go check that out. But until the next show, thank you for joining us.